Maybe a few points that are worth mentioning that how is Dragon better than some what was done, say, during the Apollo era. The fact that the launch board system is integrated with the spacecraft, with the Super Draco thrusters in the sidewall, means that you have launch board capability all the way to orbit. And whereas previously with the launch escape tower, that because it's so heavy, that is discarded often just 20 or 30% of the time into flight. So shortly, not long after liftoff, the typically launch escape tower, which is sort of the historical architecture, would be discarded. So you would lose the ability to abort after that point. Whereas Dragon has abort capability all the way to orbit. And then if you have a state change, anything that's a significant state change post liftoff is something to be concerned about. And not having to eject the launch escape tower, I think, is also an improvement in safety. So I think those two are significant steps in the right direction. There's also an improved ability for reusability. Since you're not throwing away the launch escape tower, you retain the Super Draco thrusters. That you can now reuse the launch escape system with every flight, because it should hopefully be very rare that the escape thrusters are used. So that I think those three points are a meaningful improvement over designs in the past. And then one of the things we obviously this requires ongoing discussions with NASA, but I think it would be quite cool to use the boats that we are using to catch the fairing, once that is really well established, to catch Dragon as it's coming in from orbit, and then that would alleviate some of the constraints around a water landing. But that's obviously there's some time before making that happen, and we obviously need to recover fairings reliably before we would consider trying to catch the Dragon. But I think that would be also an improvement as opposed to landing in the water.
And if I can just add one thing to what Elon's saying, one of the most important things is that we're monitoring the vehicle, the launch vehicle, to make sure that you're recognizing when the launch vehicle is having a problem so that the abort system's working, right? So we've spent a lot of time together talking about, how does the spacecraft monitor the launch vehicle and then make sure that it's going to abort before it starts getting into those situations too, right? So all the things Elon's kind of like icing on the cake and additional. The spacecraft's robust. It can handle, these kinds of situations, but more importantly, we're getting the crew away before the launch vehicle is in a position where you're having to expose the crew to the fireball, right?
So and everything he said is absolutely accurate. There are huge advantages to integrating the launch abort system into the spacecraft itself, and those advantages are we can abort all the way out to almost space. The downside is it's engineeringly it's a very difficult thing to achieve, and of course we learned that back in April when we had some oxidizer go into the pressurant system and resulted in a catastrophic loss. But that's why we do these things. That's why we test, and because of the way we're acquiring this, we have very innovative partners that are doing things that have never been done before with a purpose. The purpose is to ultimately save lives, drive down costs, and increase access to space. So all of these things are working. It is absolutely true that we will have setbacks as we learn these things, but it is also true that we are going to be better off for it. And of course, what Kathy said is absolutely true as well. This spacecraft knows precisely where it is in space. Latitude, when I say space, I don't mean outer space, I just mean in space in general. Latitude, longitude, altitude, yaw, pitch, roll, trajectory, velocity. It constantly knows where it's supposed to be, and it knows what's happening to it. And so it can make a determination